Salutations.
There it is.
As you know, this is Measure of an Episode. Our continuing mission is to explore what makes a Star Trek episode a good Star Trek episode and not just good TV. I'm Paul.
I'm Jonathan.
And last week we randomly generated an episode, that episode being Next Generation Season 2, Episode 19, Manhunt. It is not what it sounds like from the title.
Not at all.
Swing and a miss. Not at all. Yeah. You didn't even swing. You just let it roll on by. Troi is more than just a little embarrassed when her mother, Lwaxana, as outrageous as ever, arrives on board the Enterprise. Okay, I kind of had an idea here. So I think maybe these blurbs are written in such a way thinking that you've already seen the episode. And these blurbs are only to help you understand what this episode is about. It's not to tease the episode. Because it kind of ruins. A lot of times these blurbs are ruining the reveal.
So what are you saying about it, like trying just to jog your memory? Like, it says nothing about her manhunt, and it says nothing about the huge out of left field reveal at the end.
Wait, what's the reveal at the end? Nothing happens at the end. What's the reveal at the end?
That the fish are assassins. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Which is a great sentence. That is not a sentence that's been used in the world before.
Okay, so I don't know where to begin. I don't want to start talking about the end until we get to the end.
No, what I'm saying is you said this, like you think the idea for the blurbs is that they're there just to kind of jog your memory, but I don't feel like it says enough about the episode to reveal, like, to jog your memory. This is an episode
talking about that you're saying that the blurb does not mention the assassins or the eventual assassins that show up. It's because they're barely in the episode.
Right.
Like,
oh yeah, no. I mean, we still. I'd be hard pressed to determine what the B plot is in this.
There is none. That's because there isn't one. I mean, there's almost one. In fact, I thought this was one of those episodes that was going to be a holodeck episode where Picard. They needed an excuse to get Picard off the ship and into the holodeck to have one of these.
Right, he's stuck in there. Yeah, especially like when he kept rebooting or reconfiguring the scenario.
Right. Exactly. But no, it's just to have him do nothing. I mean, I think the whole... Okay, so let's stop. Let's go. Let's rewind it a little bit.
Right. Let's go back to your statement that I'm trying to get resolved here.
My point is that it's only there to give you enough information to remind you of what the episode is about so you can rewatch it. Right? So all you have to know is that Troi is embarrassed, Lwaxana's on board, and she's outrageous. And that's all you need to know. That's like, oh, this is that episode. And that's all you need. It's
but Lwaxana's always outrageous. That's the problem. I feel like if it said something about being on a manhunt, hence the name of the title, or pursuing, well, no, because she was always doing that. I don't know. There's not enough in there to be just a memory jogger.
You're overestimating the time and amount that the person who wrote this blurb cares, right? They don't care enough to spend the calories to come up with something that, because obviously they have to be 1 to 2 sentences maximum, right? So they didn't want to spend that time, and so they just said it's a Lwaxana episode. You may skip. They should have just written that.
See, but I feel like the Voyager one about Neelix in Paris was a great summary, and I feel like the DS9 one about Lwaxana being on the station was a horrible one.
Right. I think in between Voyager and the Next Gen or the Next Generation, the blurb person was fired. And they brought in a new person.
An unpaid temp, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think the show starts with Picard in dress uniform. Literally. Yeah. He's literally in a dress.
Go in and out of the dress uniform, yeah.
I'm sure Patrick Stewart was super thrilled he had to walk around in a dress. It's like,
in a dress with leggings.
Are you serious?
I wonder if there are any scenes, because there are a few establishing shots in the hallways in the first season where there are male Starfleet officers walking around in that miniskirt to try to show that it was kind of gender neutral at that point. So I wonder if there are any shots of the crew in their formal uniforms not having pants on. I wonder if they tried that for the formal uniforms and they decided, maybe not.
Nope. I don't think we're ready for that.
It would explain better Lwaxana's comment of having handsome legs.
Exactly, because they're wearing tights, aren't they?
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Well, Picard is. Based on that shot, he was absolutely wearing tights. But then when Riker is talking to the crew on the bridge, he is clearly wearing regular pants. So it seems to be the top is required, but Scotty is a perfect example of that. The top is required, but the bottom is free for all. You could wear nothing and it's fine.
Accessorize as you please. That's the mantra of the uniforms in Starfleet.
I'm going to go with rainbow leggings.
That's fine. Checks out.
Okay,
so it starts out, and we think, this is going to be an interesting alien episode because they kind of did a little bit of science fiction fun with the alien. They're in hibernation. They look funny. They don't look just like people with a little bit of. They don't look like humans with just a little bit of makeup on. They actually they made these masks,
right?
Obviously,
yeah, full on fish being,
and they talk about the diet, and I don't know. It's just kind of a fun little alien moment, and they're a little bit of wharf comedy to punctuate the scene.
Yeah.
Where he says...
They are a handsome race.
Brilliant. Okay, so that sets up what I think to be the A-plot, right?
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. And then I'm starkly disappointed for the rest of the episode. So, but there is one thing that happens. So the next scene is on the bridge, and a lot of the cast is sitting there talking, and then Picard shows up on the bridge afterward. And they're essentially telling, if not lecturing the audience about how... they may be ugly, but maybe they find us ugly too. And then they all turn to the camera and wink at us.
Right.
Did you notice that part?
Yes. So hang on, just to back it up a little bit. So I think one of the things that, at least so far, what I've noticed is the A-plot is presented right before the commercial break. It happened in the Neelix in Paris episode. It happened in the dart throwing episode. It happened in the other DS9 episode with Lwaxana. So I feel like whatever you think the A-plot is going to be, at least so far, the A-plot is whatever happens right before the credits.
Yeah, you're right about that. So I was wrong in thinking that on many different levels. So... what's her name? Lwaxana shows up on a ship. They call in, and apparently you can just come and go to starships whenever you want. And like you can just show up unannounced and say like, "Hey, we're coming aboard," and the captain doesn't know about it. I understand that she has they drop several times in this episode that she has been granted some sort of ambassadorship.
Right.
Yeah. So she reads Picard's head or his mind.
Right.
His thoughts that happen inside of his head.
So yeah, I mean, it is explained later that she's wrong right now because of her condition. Now, that was said vaguely enough that I wasn't sure if Deanna was trying to protect Picard's feelings or if it actually was a condition of, or if it actually was an element of her condition.
Well, I think she's obviously she's trying to sweeten the deal for herself, I guess. Either she's fooling herself or she's trying to make Picard think that he thought that. Because later in the episode, she clearly has a clarity of thought when it comes to unmasking the assassin aliens.
Right.
So she, unless they weren't actually assassins.
Which is entirely possible. I mean, it could have just been that whatever the element was that they were hiding under their outfit was part of their outfit.
Well, and they never, I mean, the assassins never say, they never confess. They just say, what are you talking about? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe she's just wrong about that, and they just take her word for it when they shouldn't have.
Right. But
they learned nothing from the episode.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. By the way, Betazoids have black eyes.
Yeah.
I never noticed that until this episode.
Oh, I know. Ever. Yeah. It's pretty difficult to notice on Deanna. Just because of her dark hair and kind of her, not olive complexion, but just she's got big eyes too. I don't know. There's something about Deanna that really hides the fact that her eyes are black.
By the way, the Mr. Holm guy, her assistant person, is that the same actor as Lurch?
Yes.
From Addams Family?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and he always plays that silent type. I was actually trying to find something where he was talking, and I didn't find one as of this recording, but I'm hoping to. It'd be amazing if he has like a really high pitched squeaky voice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he also seems to be an alcoholic,
right? Yeah, not really addressed.
Yeah, they just kind of have that in the background. A little more comedy. This whole episode feels like a Robert Altman movie. It's this weird, funny, but not explicitly funny. It's just funny things are like the characters are doing goofy things all the time.
Right.
I think there's another moment where we get lectured that people aren't objects lesson for. Actually, the whole episode feels that way.
Well, yeah, there was the part with Worf and Wesley, which is a great buddy sitcom. where
Actually, I would watch it. I would watch that.
Where he talks about how he's actually quite. Does he say handsome for a Klingon, or does he say attractive?
No, he thinks so. Wesley says how ugly these aliens are directly in front of them, without any knowledge that they can either hear or not hear while they're in hibernation.
Right.
So he says they're ugly. Worf says, "I'm sure you thought I was ugly for a little while," and Wesley's like, "Yeah, you're right." It's like this little after school special moment while they lecture us that people aren't objects. And then I think Lwaxana comes in and gives us another hit of that too, because she, in essence, she is what's the word? Objectifying all the men on the ship.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's two very contrasting commentaries about society. Like, she's treating all men as objects, and all the men are saying, there's more to these things than appearance.
Right. The message is the same. Right. I think that the Lwaxana whole plotline of her objectifying all the men is meant to be ridiculous enough that you're supposed to be like, oh, now I see the error of my ways in objectifying people, so now I'm going to stop. It just seems so heavy-handed. How can it not be that? Okay, so Picard gets invited to a dinner he thinks is a ship-wide dinner. And
oh, that was another moment. Yeah, he says, tonight's dinner is formal. And as he's leaving, everybody's like, wait, what dinner?
I didn't know about that. And nobody follows up. Like, nobody's like, oh, I should probably find out about this dinner to make sure I'm not invited or I am invited. Nobody does that. Or maybe they did and they find out they're not invited. They sign relief and go about their business.
I think if everybody on the bridge didn't know about a dinner but it's your captain. I don't know. I think if everybody on the bridge was like, I don't know what we're talking about, then I would leave it to the commanding officer to find the details. I would, as an ensign, I would not go and say, "Excuse me, Captain."
Yeah. Chase after him.
Got to wait for the next lift.
Right. And then, so they always write the Dr. Pulowski. So Picard runs into Pulowski on his way to dinner, and he's in his dress uniform. And he invites her to dinner. "Oh, you're not coming to dinner?" And she says, "Oh, no, I've already eaten. Thanks, though." Which, right, to me, like, she always seems to be giving the finger to the captain for some reason. I don't know if that's just the actor, that's just the way she kind of acts or emotes, or if the character was intentionally written to be kind of rebellious against his command.
Right. Well, yeah, she was definitely written to be kind of the opposite of Crusher. I don't know if it was as kind of a finger to the producers who fired Crusher, or if it was just they wanted somebody who was a stark contrast to Beverly.
Did they fire her, or I thought she just took a leave of absence because she wanted to have a baby?
No, she didn't take a leave of absence. She wasn't happy with how the cast was being treated, and so she made her concerns. She voiced her concerns, and they basically fired her. But Roddenberry thought that she was so good that they didn't want to just fire her with, like, oh, her shuttle died, or her shuttle exploded and there were no survivors. So anyway, so Pulaski came in, and something that I didn't know, but every episode she is a special appearance by blah 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 as Dr. Pulaski. So she was never even in the credits put as one of the cast members, and it was really sad because she was in the original series for a few episodes, and I think she was in one of the movies. I'm not positive, but she had Star Trek experience before this, and she said being on TNG was the worst experience she had, kind of for that reason. They'd already established who the Doctor was, so she was a new member of the family after the previous one left, so there was already a bit of resentment, and she was treated as a guest star, basically, and so she was never fully accepted into the cast family.
Yeah, I do wonder. I would love to know. I would love to ask her. Get a couple beers into her and ask her what really went down.
Right.
Was Roddenberry your friend, like, on the set, or was he sort of always gunning to get Crusher back? I'd love to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so Picard shows up for dinner.
Yep.
With a fifth of absinthe.
Oh my gosh, we're only there. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess Lurch is he's as a perk of his job is just entitled to drink whatever is brought as a gift to any dinner. Maybe that was part of it. I have no idea. Again, with more comedy.
Yeah, watching him just down the whole thing with the cutaway. Starting the drink, cutting away, and
I mean, they didn't do the other trope, which is you let most of it spill out to the side.
Right.
He was very formal about it. They have dinner, and at what point? Oh, they bring Data in because he pulls a gag, yet another Altman gag, where he invites the boring person into dinner so he doesn't have to talk to Lwaxana.
Well, so this was played. So, I mean, it must have been played specifically for the awkwardness because it was so slow. It was so awkward. I had such a hard time staying focused on this scene.
First of all, okay, we should say this, that all of the actors are doing a really good job staying in character.
Yes.
They do. They showed up for this episode.
Yeah.
But there is nothing of substance.
No.
And okay, so he brings him in. It's a funny gag. Should I stay, Captain, and keep entertaining our guests with this gag?
Well, hang on. Let's go back to my comment. Data's on the bridge, and Picard's like, "When you're done with your shift, if you have time," and Data goes, "I'll be right there." Data out.
Drops everything.
Right. Like, what is he telling Riker? The captain just invited me to dinner. I have to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. You're right. Why is he leaving his post? Which he's doing. He's in the middle of something.
Right.
Like, by the way, it's nighttime. It's dinner time. Why is everybody, and like Picard says, I have to go back to the bridge now. Is he pulling the night shift? And like all of the main cast is apparently on the bridge working during dinner time. I thought that there would be a night shift.
Yeah, the night crew?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. This episode was written by a computer.
Well, and it could also be that Picard, at the end of the day, like this was his dinner hour. He has to go back and kind of wrap everything up of the day, put in his logs and all that kind of thing. And then finally, then he gets to go to bed and Data gets to take over.
Right. He'd go practice flute or something. Maybe you're right. But how long were they there? I got the impression they were there for hours while Data was recounting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that was Commander watching his clock going, where is he? Like, his break is up and has been for a while.
Yeah. But, it was a great gag. I laughed.
Yeah.
Many times. Many times. So by 24 minutes and 18 seconds, we finally get to the holodeck. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this has been all A plot. Finally, the B plot is starting.
Right.
And he goes in and we have a very long scene of nothing happening in this office, in this, as he's playing Dixon Hill.
Yep.
I was thinking to myself, oh my God, it feels like a cut scene when you watch a movie on a Blu-ray or something.
Right.
And you're thinking, oh, there's a reason why they cut this. It's boring. But anyway, so we have this whole scene in Dick Dixon Hill's office. And there's a moment where he says, "Computer, more ambience, less substance." And the computer accidentally creates Voyager in that moment.
So you're saying Voyager is a holodeck program?
Voyager is more ambience, less substance.
Right.
Because it's actually really good at the ambience of Star Trek. It does that really well.
Right.
It's just bad at the plot stuff. Or not as good. We'll say not as good.
Okay. Not as good.
Anyway, so there's a guy with a scar, like in the second round of episodic things that he's going through, that Dixon Hill is going through.
Uh-huh.
The guy with the scar comes in, and it's actually kind of shot, they're having fun with it. They're having fun with this whole noir vibe. And the guy says, "You think this is funny? I came here on serious business."
Right.
And at that moment, I was like, this is how I feel watching this episode. Like, you tried to make a comedic Star Trek episode, and I came here on serious business. And I'm pissed. I'm super pissed at everybody watching this episode because nobody takes this episode seriously. Nobody.
Well,
so much to the point that they cut Geordi out entirely. Geordi's not in this episode.
Right. Yeah. He's only mentioned once by a tall guy, by Gigantor. Yeah. So, fun fact about that guy, the one who grabs the lapels, that is Gowron.
Who's Gowron?
The wide-eyed, crazy Klingon.
Oh, right. In one of the movies? Or is that in the show?
No, that's in the show. It's definitely in the later seasons of TNG, and I'm pretty sure he's on DS9 a couple times as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, the one who can open his eyes really wide. They're just completely round.
Well, I thought they were playing with this because I thought that the computer would, the A plot or the B plot was going to be some sort of weird computer glitch.
Right.
Where the character that it created was one of the crew members because they cast his face in shadow for most of his scene.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be something important. Nope.
Yeah. Nope. Not important.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Halfway through the episode, we went into the holodeck, and there was so much happening in those first few moments with Picard of him trying to downplay the violence. It was like it was his first time playing Dixon Hill. You know, he walks in and he's like, Did I do that? Tell me about this. What happened? Who are you?
You called this program. Like, what? You picked this one. And is that how you're supposed to go through it? You're supposed to go through it kind of jumping into the middle of the plot line? I mean, can you imagine how amazing it would be if this actually existed?
Oh, I know.
Where you can walk in and just become a character.
Right.
And first of all, why is he ducking when the guy shoots at him? I mean, I guess that's just a reflex, but you'd think that the second time that he ducks, he's like, oh yeah, I forgot. I remember now that I'm in a holodeck where nothing can hurt me.
Yes, but I think also, if I'm remembering right, in the first season, and probably some of the second season, the holodeck had glitches where people were getting hurt.
I guess that's true. I guess the holodeck is a very dangerous place.
Yeah. At least until they actually go to dock it at Starfleet and they get the holodeck like maintained and all the viruses taken out. The writer of this episode actually wrote the previous episode with Dixon Hill. And there was another episode that he wrote as well, which included Lwaxana Troi. So this episode is kind of the wrap-up of those two previous plot lines, mainly because the guy quit after.
No, he was fired. Let's be clear about it.
No.
He was fired.
So he wrote the episode, and it was supposed to be a much more noir episode, where Picard was going to be doing voiceovers, but they felt that it was too confusing to have both the captain's log and the detective voiceovers. So they cut that out. And then because Lwaxana is Majel Barrett, who is married to Gene Roddenberry, when they decided to bring her back, they bumped up, they beefed out her role to be the point of the episode. Because if your boss's wife is on the show, you want to make sure she gets as much time as possible.
Right. I guess, I mean, that totally explains it. It totally explains why the Dixon Hill section of this episode is just nothing.
Right.
Nothing happens.
No,
he does nothing.
He's literally there to hide from Lwaxana, and that's what he does. Yeah. Like, he might as well have just been, like, we might as well have had the camera on him as he was, like, reading the newspaper and drinking his Earl Grey tea.
It would have been great. It would have been great if all of that was replaced with him with a clear cup of tea, and he's sitting there reading whatever, a paper. And every time we cut back to him, there's a little bit less tea. And that's the only thing that's changed. And then we cut away, cut back, a little bit less tea. And that's all that's changed through the whole episode until she barges in.
Well, and occasionally he'll turn a page while the camera's on him.
Right, but when we cut back to him, he has just turned the page. Right?
So he's just putting it down.
He's just putting it down.
Or he's reaching for the corner and he starts to lift and it cuts away.
Just when you think it's going to get exciting, we cut away.
Or he, like, the first scene ends with Madeline bringing him a plate of a sandwich. And then when it comes back, the sandwich is gone. He's, like, wiping his face, just putting it down.
We miss all the action. We just get the stuff that would normally be edited out, right?
Yes. But speaking of which, on Squarespace, on iTunes, on anywhere you have found this podcast, there is a link that leads to Patreon. If you are enjoying this episode so far, if this is not the first episode you've heard and you do want to contribute, please consider. There's different levels of tiers that give you different access to things, such as side conversations, outtakes, the pre-show before we lead into the actual recordings. There's also ways to contact and contribute to the podcast yourself, and we will acknowledge you in the episode.
So the computer is obviously bored with this episode as well. It kind of plays a joke on Picard. I think that the computer knows what's happening.
It seemed like it.
Yeah, it's just fucking with him because it keeps escalating.
Right. First a gun, then basically manhandling him, and then pulling out a Tommy gun. Yeah, computer, that's what I meant when I said it's too violent.
I can't remember what happens. Very little stuck in my mind about this episode. But one of the act outs is where Lwaxana announces that Riker is her new betrothed man.
Yes, completely unbeknownst to him.
And the act out is the music swells as the camera pushes in on Troi. And she sort of has this look of dread. And I'm thinking to myself, this is where, okay, I know that the episode makers, I don't know that, episode makers?
That's technical.
I'm a Russian spy again. So,
did you leave that in last time?
Yeah, that's in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Your impression was spot on.
Thanks.
Of a Russian spy trying to infiltrate a parent-teacher conference.
Parent-teacher convention.
Yeah, exactly. But so why would she take that seriously? Obviously, Riker's not going to marry her mother. I mean, and at this point, I don't know where we are in the Riker-Troi love.
In the first episode, we hear her thoughts, and I never learned if we were just hearing her thoughts or if we were hearing her communicate to Riker because he learned that ability because they were together. But yes, they have already had a active, long-term romantic history before the series started. So Lwaxana should clearly know not only who Riker is, but how he is related to Deanna and their relationship.
But she didn't care. Lwaxana didn't care. She was just sort of she was in heat, and you don't care. My problem with this is Troi. She wouldn't give a shit. And Riker doesn't take it seriously. Like, he rejects her immediately. And so I don't understand. Like, it's comedy. Another Altman moment.
Sure.
And they needed an act out, I guess.
Right. I can see what you're saying, but I also think because they were on the bridge and she just announced it, I feel like it's Deanna's mom. And no matter how professional you are, if your parents are at your workplace and they do something outlandish, you're going to be self-conscious about it.
Oh, so she's not worried about Riker being taken away from her, which is how I took it. She's worried about, oh my God, I've just been humiliated on at my workplace.
Yeah, that's kind of how I would take it.
Got it. Okay.
I think that you're right of what the intention was of the writers, but it could easily be interpreted the other way. And because I like this show, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Season 2 is not a good season.
No.
At least based on this one episode. All of the season 2 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation that we've seen have not been that great. So Riker goes to join Picard in the Dixon Hill, and
Dick Dixon Hill.
Dick Dixon Hill. And before he leaves, Data goes, "Are you going to the holodeck? Give me 5 minutes."
And then you hear it like the marimba thing, like as he runs out of the room.
Right. Yeah, with a puff of smoke where Data used to be.
Yeah, the cartoon. Yeah, exactly.
Or his comm badge and his ranking just stay floating there for a moment before they trail off after him.
Has he been Sherlock Holmes yet in this episode? Or sorry, in this show? I can't remember.
I feel like yes. I feel like the Moriarty episode is in the first 2 seasons because of all the glitches that were happening with the holodeck.
Okay, so they come to see Picard in the holodeck.
Yes.
Trying to warn him.
Data in costume, Riker in not.
Yeah, which I appreciated. I like that Riker waited for Data to go.
I know.
Such
a good
friend. There's a moment where the bartender says, they're about to leave, and the bartender says, "Hey, your friends have time for a drink, right, Dix?" And I'm thinking to myself, that is the theme of this episode. Everybody has time for a drink.
Sure.
There's no stakes. Nothing is happening. There doesn't seem to be, wherever they're going, it's very far away because it takes the whole episode to get there.
Well, they said it would take 3 days.
Oh, well, this whole episode felt like at least 7 weeks of time.
Oh, that 3 days lasted 7 weeks. This 45-minute episode that was supposed to last over 3 days took 7 weeks.
It just felt that way. Everybody has, no matter what they're doing, time for a drink.
Absolutely.
And then Lwaxana shows up.
It was kind of funny because when Lwaxana, as she's trying to find the holodeck, she goes to the computer and asks where the holodeck is located. Lwaxana is played by Majel Barrett, Gene Roddenberry's wife, who also does the voice of the computer. So she's basically having a conversation with herself at that point. I felt like the computer sounded a little bit different to try and avoid the fact that it sounded like she was talking to herself. Like it seemed a little bit more, it seemed a little lower or a little bit more neutral than it usually is. And that might have just been because I knew it was Majel Barrett talking to herself, but it sounded like it wasn't the usual high.
Well, and this goes into her just being an idiot because she doesn't know how to use a computer, right? She lives in this society. She was on a spaceship that rendezvoused with another spaceship, and then she beamed over, and she's like, "Oh, I don't like how these work." Like, I feel like that's the same thing as an older person getting into a car and being like, oh, these things make me nervous. I hate these things.
Well,
At this point.
And somebody who's like in their 50s, not even somebody who is close to 100 where, they were around for the first time of cars being invented. Do I still need to crank the front?
What is this invisible metal that I can see through that's surrounding us? And why isn't the wind hitting me as we travel through space? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Again, it's a Robert Altman movie. They wanted some hijinks for like, oh, well, she doesn't like beaming, and so we have to, I don't know.
And it made me wonder, like, why she beamed in kneeling down. Like, was she that tall in the shuttlecraft that was flying over? Or, where she had to beam, like she had to crouch down to beam out. Oh, that was another thing. The person was actually so upset with how much they changed this episode and another one of the other two that he wrote that he actually went under a pseudonym. His name is actually not listed in the credits because he was so upset with how much it changed. He was like, I don't want the credit for this episode.
Can't really blame him.
Right?
Can't really blame. I mean, they must have taken out all of the interesting Dixon Hill stuff.
So, speaking of Dixon Hill, so she shows up at the saloon.
Lwaxana shows up and apparently has never heard of a holodeck, never heard of a hologram, no clue what's going on around her, which I kind of just don't believe.
Right. Yeah, that was really poorly written. Because she comes in and she's like, this is the dirtiest part of the ship. Yeah.
Yeah, she thinks
1941.
30s? Yeah, 1940s Earth there's a section of the ship that has been designed that looks like this,
and just takes it in stride. Not why would you do this?
Is she senile? Is that part of this disease? By the way, is this the same disease that is brought up later in DS9?
I can't. No, again, I don't think it is because that's like 10 years later.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this is the
second phase of it.
Can go on.
Right?
Yeah, it can go on for a long time.
Yeah, maybe it's the tail end of it. Goes out with a bang of blasting out all your emotions onto other people before you finally get over it.
Guess so.
Which is really sad. Like 10 years of being on this manhunt and then
senility,
right?
Like just like making a fool out of yourself.
Yeah. Actually, now that we've said that, I'm gonna every time she comes up in later seasons, I'm gonna see if that holds true.
Well, she's always played as horny.
Yeah,
always. She's always hot for Picard.
Right.
So next time, which I'm sure will be the next episode that we watch.
Yes. And the other thing, too, is I know that there's mandatory rape in every episode, but I would not consider Star Trek to be a sexual show. But like the last 4 episodes that we have watched, my daughters watched this one with me. And again, I was like, there were parts in this episode just based on the conversation. Like there was nothing physically intimate, but they're young enough where I was like, I don't really want to start having these conversations with you based on what they're saying.
Do they talk about sex explicitly in this?
Yeah, when Troi was talking to Picard, telling her about the phase that it was, and Riker says, so it's kind of like menopause. And she says, yes, with a hyperactive sex drive. It's 4 times as high. That's what Riker says. And then Deanna says, or more. And Riker goes, or more. And she says, I didn't want to scare you.
So how does this show end? It just ends. I think it just... What happens? I have no idea. Oh, so the holodeck. She has the hots for the holodeck guy, and then
Picard basically turns off the holodeck, and she gets super embarrassed and super upset. Yeah, which all of this happens off camera. We don't get to see that revelation, which would have been great.
Just leave her in the holodeck. They did that to that other guy. Just leave it running and don't tell her. She'll be happiest that way for the next however long this phase of her disease happens or whatever it is. Just leave her in there,
right?
And lock the door.
Holodecks 1 through 4 are being used. Well, use holodeck 5. We can't.
Yeah. It's like that orange tape,
yep.
like this space, do not enter. That'd be a great episode. Like a little kid accidentally goes in there.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Thanks for that. Thank you for your acknowledgement that I was speaking.
No, I thought you meant like a kid goes into the holodeck and then they put the yellow tape up. I was like, what? I am not.
No, he accidentally wanders into the
holodeck 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And she's just a monster now, right? Like,
sure, because that's what happens to Betazoids.
This is season 2. Season 7, he wanders in. So there's been 5 years of her just operating under the assumption that she can just ask for whatever she wants and it happens. And so she's just a monster, right? She's this crazy person that has been living in the holodeck, unbeknownst to her that it's just a fake place. Oh God, how much do you want to see that episode?
Very much so. Yeah,
like everybody is Picard. Everybody.
But Picard
it's
was
like being John Malkovich, but it's Picard.
Right. But Picard was her first, but wasn't her only, clearly. So there would be like Worfs with male personal bits.
just walking around naked. Everybody's walking around naked.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, you're right. It just ends. Like he says, I'm afraid to tell her, and then he's like, well, she's gonna find out eventually, and then just turns it off, and then it cuts to her walking with Troi, with Deanna, being embarrassed and humiliated or whatever, and they're leaving, and then in the transporter room, Lwaxana gives the big reveal.
Oh right, yeah, you're right.
That they were assassins, and they're like, what? No.
So they stop whatever assassination or terrorist, whatever.
Yep, before it even started.
And
before there was any kind of espionage or
anything. Yeah.
Yep, intrigue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do wonder if there was more
in a detective
to that
episode.
Plot. Yeah. In a holodeck. Bullshit. If they showed up on the holodeck, I'm in totally 100%. And they're a part of that, of the Dixon Hill detective shit.
Right.
But that didn't happen.
But they weren't. It wasn't.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. So we were totally fucked again by the random episode generator. How does this keep happening? We keep landing on the crap, even with Next Gen, where there are more good episodes than bad ones. We keep landing on the either the fair to middling to just crap. So there is no B plot in this episode. You might say that it is the assassins, but it doesn't. Nothing happens. It's just we're presented with people in the beginning of the episode who are catatonic, and then at the end of the episode, they're walking around and they're arrested as terrorists. There's no intrigue at all.
Right.
Not a B plot.
Yeah, there was nobody investigating the fish. There was no one interacting with the fish. They were talking at them, but they weren't talking.
There was
with
no
them.
mystery. It's not like,
Right.
What is in this box? We don't know. We should try and open it. Well, we can't do that. Well, we're getting weird readings from the box. We should probably open it. That would be against our whole thing. We can't do that. Like, there was not even that discussion.
Right. As heavy-handed as it was, they didn't play into more the discussion about judging a book by its cover and objectifying.
Right. They must be evil because they look evil.
Right.
That kind of thing.
And then they turned out to be evil. Whoops.
Yeah. Wrote ourselves into a corner on that one.
Yeah. Those are the best, where like the person has the realization that they were being too harsh, and then it turns out they were right all along, but they've already made that personal growth. It's But I feel like it happens in a lot of kids' cartoons. I feel like I see that a lot, where somebody realizes that they weren't supposed to judge somebody, and then the way they were judging them turned out to be right anyway. And they're like, I knew it!
Yeah.
I learned nothing.
So, yeah, I'm going to say not a Star Trek episode. I mean, what's the science fiction in this?
Right. I mean, yeah, that's kind of where I was sitting with it, too. I was trying to determine whether or not this could happen on any other series, and it kind of can. Like, it doesn't have to be an ailment. It could just be the woman's, the crew member's sex-hungry mother, which, has happened in several comedy shows. And it actually, we just saw this on Life in Pieces, kind of the other way. There was an obnoxious character who kept talking to people in the family in the house, and they kept hiding in the bathroom. So one by one, the bathroom got more and more full. And that's basically what happened here. Picard hid off in the in the saloon, and then Riker and Data joined him, and then they were caught.
Everybody's hiding in the... Yeah. They eventually, like, if they were to always be hiding, they would have just created an entire bridge in the holodeck that was wired into the actual controls on the actual bridge, so they didn't have to leave the holodeck.
That would have been amazing. It would have... It would have been great if that was like the Crusher episode too. She was stuck on the holodeck, and it was just because like people were so irritated with her at that point in her life that like everybody's just trying to leave her alone.
And everybody has their little moment where they're missing Pulowski.
Yeah.
that they actually in the holodeck have created Pulowski, and so whenever Crusher shows up, the computer maps Pulowski onto Crusher.
And she doesn't know.
No, she doesn't know. And sometimes they'll slip. No, the computer, if they say Pulowski, the computer automatically changes that into Crusher. It's like a find and replace filter.
There you go. Yeah, with the translator, totally doable.
Would have been interesting. Not in this episode, though.
No. Yeah. So this episode, I mean, like you said, it was fun. It was okay one time. I would not enjoy watching it again, but it really wasn't a Star Trek episode. There was nothing in here that couldn't have been in another TV series.
It was fun to watch the actors it was fun to be in the world, I suppose, only to watch the characters play. right?
Yes.
That's kind of the only thing the only enjoyment that I got out of it.
Yeah.
But there really isn't a B plot. Not a lot of science fiction. I mean, the only science fiction really was how they explored the terrorist aliens and their biology and how they kind of fed that to you in a very slow manner.
Right.
A little bit. I mean, they were barely in the show, but I liked hearing about that. I wish there was more of that. So I don't think that was enough for me.
Well, no, because it wasn't integral to the plot.
No. I mean, it wasn't even the B plot. I mean, technically, I'm sure if we had to categorize it, that would be the B plot.
Right.
But it's only in name. It doesn't function at all as a plot line.
No, yeah. It does. It just wasn't explored enough for the Dart episode had more exploration of O'Brien's
darts
rise and fall.
Right. How you can hit it in the middle or like off to the side.
It wasn't a dart tutorial.
Wasn't it?
Again, somebody being trained on something that is real life and like have that be the B plot, No, when you do this, you have to straighten your legs.
Right. So origami, it's the fascinating hobby.
I could totally see Neelix getting into it.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this human hobby? It's called origami.
No, it would be the other way around. It would be like Cardassian origami.
Right. There you go.
Some bullshit like that.
Yep. Yeah. It's a piece of Trigarian cake. So it's kind of funny. The fish assassins, they're covered in makeup, but one of them is actually from the band Fleetwood Mac. It's this is kind of, urban legend at this point, so a lot of listeners should already know this. But he was such a diehard fan of Star Trek that he asked if he could be on the show, and they said yes, but you'll have to put on alien makeup. And he said that's totally fine. So they said you'll have to shave your beard, and apparently Mick Fleetwood was known for his beard, so he said no problem. So he shaves his beard, and he comes in and then gets covered in makeup, head to toe, and prosthetics, where no one would be able to remotely recognize that he was from Fleetwood Mac. Like, it literally could have been somebody off the street.
Well, I guess he did it for the bragging rights that he was on Star Trek.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
I
but there's no way he can
yeah.
prove it except for in the credits. Like, you can't say, that's me. What, the fish guy? Like,
yeah. No, that's Patrick Stewart. For sure.
In the leggings.
Do you know which Fleetwood Mac guy it was? Was it Fleetwood or was it Mac?
It was Fleetwood. It was Mick Fleetwood.
I thought you were saying Mick Fleetwood like it was a joke because it's Mac Fleet.
It's Fleetwood Mac, yeah.
Like it was McFleetwood? Like
Right.
that was your name for them?
Gotcha. No, funny, but no.
See, who deserves credit for that? I don't, because I thought you were being, and I just was following along with it. But you obviously don't get credit for it because you didn't mean to say that.
So it's
So who gets credit for it?
the joke
Nobody.
gods? Okay, nobody. Sorry, let's do that again. 1, 2, 3. Nobody. Oh.
Oh, nobody. Oh, wait, there's a delay. There's a delay in comedy. This is not a Star Trek.
This is not a Star Trek episode.
Agreed?
Yeah, it was not. Yeah. So before we go into finding the next episode, I just want to say if you guys are liking what we say, either this episode or you've listened to the last 8 episodes and you kind of want to keep listening, if you haven't yet, putting a review down at the bottom really helps us out. It lets other people know what kind of podcast it is, your thoughts on it, and it helps us out as podcasters. So if you can just take 30 seconds, a minute, just to write what you think of us, it really helps us out.
All right, let's figure out what we're watching next.
It is the Enterprise series, episode Terra Prime. It's from season 4, episode 21, the penultimate episode. And the blurb is, Paxton threatens to destroy Starfleet headquarters unless all aliens leave Earth. Enterprise must shut down an array on Mars, but it is well defended.
Wow. Seems like an action-packed episode.
Right?
Yeah. I do wonder which one of our blurb writers wrote this one.
Based on that description, I would guess it's the one for Voyager, because it seems to put in both plot lines.
Right. Good point. So the new guy wrote this blurb.
The Star Trek fan, not the one who had it forced upon him.
Or just the person who watches more than the cold open.
Right. Or, does any kind of research. Like, you can find this stuff on Wikipedia, Memory Alpha. Like, there's so many places you can find more details on these episodes. Well, I don't know. Could you have found it before Netflix?
I think the reason why they wrote new blurbs is because they didn't want to pay that whatever blurb was written by Paramount was either too long or whatever. So they didn't want to use it, and they didn't want to go online because those are technically copywritten. And so copyrighted. And so they didn't want to use somebody else's and have to pay them. So they paid somebody to create new ones, but not enough.
Right. Clearly.
Not pay them enough.
All right, let's go watch it.
Yes.